Hello, brothers and sisters. The title of the message today is Being Led by the Hand of the Lord, chapter 8 from 1974 to the year 2018. Just before my friend graduated from theological college, during the winter vacation, one of his college juniors arranged a meeting with his older sister who lives in Jincheon, Chungbuk province. He decided to get married with her, and they got married and brought their suitcases and briefcases to Noha Island down in Jeolla province. We asked him, "Why did you hurry up so much?" And he answered, "In order to become a pastor, I had to get married first." I did not know anything then. I was just felt at a loss. Maybe 1 month passed, he received a letter of appointment. They started newlyweds life, moved to Mokpo and to a small village church. Among my friends, one of them got married at the age of 19 and got a daughter at the age of 20. Reverend Chung got married at the age of 23 and got a daughter at the age of 24. But I could not get married. Even 10 years passed. I could not even dream of my own marriage. But so many people around me worried about me and supported me to get married. Then I could not get married later. I was able to get married later. Reverend Chung was so different from me. My friend simply make a decision and quickly move forward. This kind of temperament in himself enabled him to left the Noah Island, went up to Seoul, and studied theology. Whatever he did that made me feel at a loss. Suddenly went up to Seoul following him. The village people might have felt at a loss. When he left this world, he had a feeling of his own death in advance. He left the last letter of will and donated his dead body to the hospital, the medical college, and he made a phone call to the people around him in advance. His chronic disease was high blood pressure, and more serious disease was his heart disease. He received the operation of his coronary artery. One day he was sitting in front of his computer. He lost his consciousness. They moved him to hospital. He could not wake up because of his brain hemorrhage. He knew he was going to die, just like his usual behavior. He knew he would go anyway. He was going to die, just like his usual behavior. He knew he would go anyway, so he left without looking back. He just moved forward. He was at a small country church, but he suddenly went up so without any attached emotion. Other people tried to stop him, but he moved to a Pentecostal church. Because of my problem, he knew our denomination had no more hope. He suddenly changed his path of his ministry. I was working at Campus Crusade, and I was absorbed into the Korean Christianization movement. He was suffering so much at an unknown place. At Pentecostal church, he built a small church, but later he moved to a Presbyterian church again. He moved several small churches here and there. Finally, he went fasting for 40 days. He borrowed the second floor of a deacon's house and started a new church. But he must have suffered so much. I heard from his wife he did not have any money to heat the floor of his house during the winter season. His children suffered so much they don't like the church at all. Well, his children felt the impression of his father's church was so shabby and worn out by poverty. It was inevitable for his children. In old days, if people look at poor pastor, the church people felt so embarrassed. But at the same time, they thought they are holy people and children could endure the misery. But in modern times, people are quite the opposite. It is really deplorable, but it is the reality. When I listened to his wife's words, I met good brothers. I was able to lead comfortable life in Daegu Church. And when I think about my friend, my heart became so heavy. Well, weak person like myself, Lord took good care of, maybe. I felt so sorry about him. Just because of me, he was leading a comfortable life in the countryside, but left the countryside and went up to Seoul and suddenly and suffered so much. My another friend, Reverend Yoon Suk Lim, is the same. He was a pastor of a large church in Mokpo City, but because of me, he went up to Seoul. Even other people tried to stop him and suffered so much, just like Reverend Jung in Seoul. When my friend was still alive, I wanted to help him, but I felt I could not help him. So sorry. He was sitting in front of his computer to deliver a lecture at the theological college. He was preparing for manuscript with poor typing skill. He left this world, and we all, without any words. Suppose I knew you're leaving this world in advance, I could have talked with you for days and days. Chapter 8 from 1974 to the year 2018. Subtitled, The Transformation in My Life and Ministry. In fall season 1974, when I was in Chungju, I met Watchman Nee. A great transformation took place in my life and my ministry. The moment I learned the fact that the Bible can reveal a totally different meaning through revelation according to the person who reads the book, my standing point toward the Bible was totally overturned. I knew the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that appeared in the 11th chapter of the book of Genesis so well because I learned them from my Sunday school, my childhood. The summary is that Abraham received the blessing because of his faith, Isaac received the blessing because of his obedience, and Jacob received the birthright because of his strong and special desire and enthusiasm. He was able to become the ancestor of Israel. But Watchman Nee kept saying God calls people according to his own purpose and disciplines according to his own purpose. God disciplines until he became 100 years old in order to give his son Isaac. Isaac was offered as a sacrificial offering on the Mount Moriah. He enjoyed a limitless blessing as a son, and Jacob snatched out his blessing from his older brother, but he received discipline lifetime, and became the ancestor of Israel. He had an entirely different viewpoint from other people when he read the Bible. He himself was receiving discipline under God's calling. That's why he was able to view the Bible that way. No eyes has seen, no ears have heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. I have never met such kind of interpreter in my life. King Nebuchadnezzar and Pharaoh of Egypt had a dream, but they couldn't meet a good interpreter. But when they met a good interpreter, the heaven was opened up before their eyes. The dream and the vision come from heaven. Therefore, the interpretation is absolutely necessary. In order to get the perfect interpretation, man of God must come to us. If not, the darkness and confusion will come to us instead. In our life, there is a master who controls our life. The dream and vision are continuously given from him. But if we cannot interpret them, they disappear like the smoke and we get lost in the darkness. I passed through various kinds of disciplines. I was born from a poor parents who made their living from hand to mouth. As I was not healthy from my childhood, just before I reached to my puberty, I came down with the tuberculosis, which was so difficult to cure around that time. My dream of continuing my study was shattered like the autumn leaves fall and become scattered all over. Medicine for the tuberculosis was imported from overseas countries, and they were so expensive. I spent so much money treating my disease. My health was just like a cracked jar, the barely fixed with a steel wire. But my friend, late Reverend Jung Ho Jung, became God's messenger. He called me so that I could enter into theological college. It was a dream-like moment for me. All my acquaintances were all surprised. After that, because of the help of Reverend Hong Mok Kim, I was able to walk the smooth path as a pastor. My heart was full of hope, and my friends envied me when I was concentrating on my ministry. But one day, the thunder and lightning hit my life. It was the day before, beyond my imagination. I trusted and respected that head pastor so much before, but he deserted me. I fell into a swamp of hopelessness. I had no other hope and way out. I was just like a duck egg fell into the river. How can this duck egg push it aside and enter into the reed field, hatch there, and grow up as a big duck? This kind of luck can be gotten with a thin probability, maybe 1/100th, 1,000th, or 1/10,000th. For 27 years, my life was so dismal, there was no clear interpretation about my own life. But as I could enter into theological college, I said to myself, for this very day, how could I remain on this earth up to now? Though it was a dim interpretation, but one day a thunder and lightning hit my life. My life became so dark again. In front of my eyes, I was able to see only the shrewd intrigues of my enemies who were trying to harm me. I had to struggle for 4 years, but I was exhausted and came out of our denomination. It was a dark night. It was a pitch black night. This world and the religious world, the power was ruling. The truth or justice was just their excuses for their rationalization. Everything looked in a negative way, but then one day my friend, late Reverend Yoon Suk Lim, introduced me to Campus Crusade. I have never imagined before I was able to work there with a new hope. All these things were happening until I became 37 years old. It was a long history. If I talk more in detail, they will be filled with stories after stories. When I joined the Campus Crusade, I was working there with a great hope, but the true interpretation was not possible. But then one day, a great interpreter emerged, a man who was able to interpret my life clearer than myself. On the standing point of heaven beyond my imagination, on the standing point of heavenly blessing, that very man appeared before me. Why couldn't I meet him earlier? On the standing point of the earth, my life couldn't be interpreted as the blessed life. Before Daniel appeared, the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar could not be interpreted. Before Joseph came, the dream of Pharaoh could not be interpreted. Nobody else except Joseph. Pharaoh was their king. He conquered and ruled over. They can lead their life according to their thoughts pleased. But the will of heaven cannot be interpreted. The will of heaven can be interpreted by the one who is dwelling in heaven. A man absolutely needed an interpreter from heaven. My family doctor was declared the termination of my treatment of tuberculosis, said to me, "Try to lead your life in a very, very careful way." The officer who checked my health before I joined in the army said so quietly with the great worries, "I wish he could at least get married." But he could not help me. But one day, a man came from heaven and saved me. And another man came down from heaven and interpreted my life. He came in order to illuminate my life with a blessing, with a merciful mind. He let me see the blessing as he illuminated it with the light. He let me listen to God's voice, which is actually not audible. And about those things that cannot be interpreted on the earth, he interpreted for me. Our God is not the one who created the universe with laws and wisdom and just turned backwards. Or he's not the one who finishes his work and disappears where people don't know. And he's not the one who disappears among the creatures and just existing as a principle. The one who created everything walk around those creatures and have a certain relationship. Something he commits to the nature themselves and he commits to the people, but for something he directly work on himself. Hallelujah. He created people for his own need, saved them, called them, disciplined them, and used them for his original purpose and fulfill his purpose. After I met the one who interpreted the Bible through illumination and revelation, my eyes were opened up, my ears were opened up, and my mind was moved toward God's work with a pride and thanks and glory. Thank you. Hallelujah. May God bless every one of you. Thank you again. Thank you. Thank you.